Least a couple of days, right? But Cleveland Browns football was back. The veterans are done until late July. The rookies come back next week for a little once over refresher before they get their summer. We're going to talk all about it. Browns 3D on the OBR starts now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate all of you who come out to the OBR every day, whether it is to wet your whistle with the written content from our fantastic group of writers, or joining us every evening for the OBR streaming network beginning at 6 o'clock. Make sure you subscribe, of course, over on YouTube. Make sure you've subscribed to the OBR over on Twitch. And with that, we are done with Brown's mandatory minicamp. We got to see some really good things here, obviously, this week. We also got to see where this team is starting to change and develop in some certain and new ways here for 2025. Obviously, the conversation all off season, throughout free agency, throughout the draft, certainly throughout rookie minicamp, the OTAs, and now the mandatory minicamp, has been the quarterback position. Now, it seems pretty much obvious how the Browns have handled this point with the quarterback position. It seems to this point, and we'll see where this goes in 5 weeks or so when the Browns reconvene in Berea for training camp. But it seemed like everything that was done either during OTAs or done during minicamp was with the thought process of having Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel get the work with the better personnel, the ones going against the ones on defense. Joe Flacco, obviously to this point, this is something I think we all understood and kind of believed was going to be the way it was going to go, is that Joe just doesn't need as much work as everybody else. And that's certainly not a sign to say one way or the other, that, where Joe is going to end up when all of this is said and done come, late August. But it was certainly done to give Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel, the early opportunity to prove themselves within this offense. And not taking anything away from what Pickett or Dillon Gabriel have done here in the past few weeks, there's one guy who's really kind of stood out. And to be fair, and to keep everything on an open and fair level, most of it has been done against second and third string. But Shedeur Sanders, and I'm not sure if or why the plan would necessarily give you the belief that Dillon Gabriel is further down the road than Shedeur Sanders is. But from what we were available to see over the last few weeks, I don't think, and I'll say it again, Shedeur Sanders was better than Dillon Gabriel coming out. Just because he went later doesn't mean that Dillon Gabriel was better. So I'm not exactly sure, why the plan was to maybe give Gabriel and Pickett more of the push and maybe not make it, a little bit more even between Pickett, Gabriel, and Sanders. Flacco, again, the way he's been handled is kind of what we all felt was going to be the case. But when this reconvenes in July, I really think this needs to be changed up. The plan for Shedeur Sanders, whatever they had preconceived, now needs to be altered. Because there's not anybody that was there who came away thinking that maybe Shedeur Sanders was the most consistent quarterback in OTAs and in minicamp. Again, factoring in maybe he wasn't going against the top level of competition. But now it's time to maybe start changing the pecking order, making a, third piece of the pie to see where Sanders goes from here. He's not going to get any better going against third and fourth string of the NFL. Shedeur Sanders is a player in this league and is going to be a quarterback within this league. So going against guys that are not going to make a 53-man roster is just pointless at this point. And also keeping in mind, he's working most of the time with the talent that were undrafted free agents or are long veteran free agents that have never gotten a real opportunity and have never cracked through anywhere. And to his credit, Shedeur Sanders has made a lot of these guys look pretty damn good. Again, I still understand the belief of starting one of the veteran quarterbacks week one. I get it. It makes total and perfect sense. And I also would suggest that as we have these conversations about Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, and of course Shedeur Sanders, I know you all buy your jerseys. I would suggest not doing that. I wouldn't count on any single one of these people having a long run, and I'll change it obviously for Gabriel and Sanders, having a long run. None of the four could have a long run as a Cleveland Browns quarterback. Pickett and Flacco, their run in time in Cleveland could be even shorter. One of them is most likely gone before September. But I don't know if I would necessarily go purchasing a Sanders or Gabriel jersey just yet with the thought process that either one of them is going to be a longtime starter here for the Cleveland Browns. But you have to give. And look, if they prefer Gabriel, that's fine. I don't agree with it. I absolutely do not agree with it. But I think the Browns need to kind of make their choice here in regards to which rookie quarterback is their guy. And when I say their guy, I don't mean their guy for the next 3 seasons. The Browns need to pick a rookie here and try to get him developed and elevated as fast as possible to be a viable playing option in the 2025 season. And it may be to get him to play to prove to you that maybe he is not a long-term option. You have these 2 first-round picks coming up in next April. It's going to be really, really hard to not take a quarterback with one of those 2 selections. But that being said, it'd be a great world if Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders got enough playing time in 2025 to prove to you that maybe you just don't need to spend one of those first-round picks on a quarterback next April. Again, the percentage of that happening is minute. But starting Kenny Pickett does nothing for me unless you tell me somehow, some way this team is winning double-digit games. I kind of feel the same way about Joe Flacco unless you tell me that this team is going to make it to the playoffs. Doesn't mean that much to me. I don't think either one of them are a foreseeable option for 2026. So what in the world are we playing them for in 2025? Gabriel, Sanders under contract for 2026. Get them on the field. See what you got. And again, I don't think either one of these guys need to be coddled. 24 years old, 23 years old, both played an immense amount of college football. There is zero reason, and there's not too much that these guys are going to pick up by sitting on the bench or watching the iPad. It's about whether or not they can make the NFL throws they need to make and succeed. So when we start running this all back here 5 weeks from now, and I think the day they're saying is about July 24th, somewhere in that range, I hope the plan is altered because The plan you now have in place, and I think what you were trying to do with Shedeur Sanders, the point is, did he, fall below your expectations to this point? Did he meet the expectations to this point? Did he exceed the expectations to this point? And every single person I have talked to that has been there have pretty much been blown away by what Shedeur has done to this point, except for one guy who likes to keep throwing stats. So I think it's time for Shedeur Sanders to become a little bit more of a real option here. And again, not saying it's for week one, but as far as being somebody that legitimately can be a starting quarterback for this team for multiple weeks here in 2025, it's time to legitimately and seriously look at Shedeur Sanders and see if he can be that guy. We did get Cedric Tillman and Woods back on the field today. Look, not anything, nothing anybody was going to do. Certainly in, one mini camp here, one mini camp practice was going to change or sway anything. But whatever the level of concern may have been for both of them, hopefully is alleviated now as both of them were able to get out on the field today. Browns need Cedric Tillman to prove that he can be that guy that he was for a 3-week stretch in 2024. The Browns, it's going to be difficult to hope that Diontae Johnson has basically rear view mirrored everything that had him in the situation he was. But the Browns could certainly use Diontae Johnson to become a contributor for this team. They were essentially the only team that reached out, pretty much heard it from Diontae Johnson himself. So the question is, he's carrying that chip on his shoulder, of course, right? Is he carrying it knowing that some of the issues he had was brought on by himself? But is he also carrying it as fuel of, I am going to toe the line? And when I toe the line and I put this game first and foremost in my life, I have shown that I have all the ability in the world. So for Diontae Johnson, him stepping in here and just a quick taste. And if I were him, I would kind of try to get in sync. And it's not like he does not have a relationship with Kenny Pickett. I would try to get in sync with one of these quarterbacks and, make these next 5 weeks worth it and get myself as, comfortable with the Cleveland Browns playbook as possible. So when training camp comes, a guy like Diontae Johnson can just hit the ground running, and hopefully all the experience and all the talent just kind of set the stage where the Browns can say, okay, our first 3 wide receivers are Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and Diontae Johnson. For Diontae Johnson, and I'm glad they brought this up today, and I'm glad Coach Stefanski brought this up today, because he's certainly a guy that you're noticing a lot on, whatever video is available. And that is second-year wide receiver Jamari Thrash. And I believe it was Greg Newsome who also shouted out Jamari Thrash recently. Look, Thrash is very, very interesting. And as much as I said in 2023, the revolving door of quarterbacks did nothing to help with the development of Cedric Tillman. In 2024, the revolving door of quarterbacks did nothing to assist in the development of Jamari Thrash. You feel bad. It's, there is so much going on as a rookie in the NFL. And then you throw into the fact that you were a rookie receiving option, tight end, wide receiver, whatever. But almost every time you're stepping into the huddle, each and every Wednesday, it's a different quarterback. There's times within the games you look into the huddle and it's not the same quarterback. It really, really dwarfs the development of rookie wide receivers. You need consistency. You need to run your routes over and over with the same quarterback so you understand exactly how the ball comes off his hands when the ball is coming to hit you, whether it is a slant, whether it is a skinny post, whether it is a dig. Is the ball coming to me? Most of the time, are the laces up or the laces down? These are all things and so many nuances that most people don't necessarily understand or would even care to think about. but you want that repetitiveness. You want to be able to run every route there is with one quarterback a cajillion times to the point where the receiver can run the route with his eyes closed and the quarterback can take his drop and throw to the spot with his eyes closed. It should become that way. But Jamari Thrash, and he's gotten a lot of credit, and a lot of people seem to be talking him up. And, with David Bell inactive, you think, Thrash would have a shot over Woods. There's a shot here for Jamari Thrash to kind of slide into that wide receiver 4 role and then certainly be challenging for a possibility at the number 3 role if something just does not continue, something does not work out with Deontay Johnson. But ideally, the Browns needed to. So, I mean, it was good for Jamari Thrash, and it was good certainly for, coach to point him out after teammates pointed him out and, looking the part. And, there's a lot more when you come into year 2 that you were just generally comfortable with. He knows the city, he knows the facilities, all of these things, just little things that can become something that divides your attention between what your actual job is. Well, that is out of the window. And, for Jamari Thrash, good for him. And there's certainly an opportunity here. It's not like he's on a team where, he's blocked. If Jamari Thrash can show he can contribute this summer, the Browns are going to find a spot for him in meaningful situations because until they acquire somebody, which I 100% truly think they will, until they acquire somebody, Jamari Thrash is right in that next man up position and certainly could, flourish with given the opportunity. It's been a weird couple of weeks, obviously with the entire running back situation. And then the finality of, Nick Chubb actually signing with another team and, taking his talents down to Houston. But I got to tell you, you've kind of got to be excited with the way the running back room looks right now. As always, I understand that a lot of you, are Jerome Ford fans. I get it. That's fine. I look at what Jerome Ford did in 2023, forced into duty that he thought he was never going to see, and basically stepped up and played extremely well for the football team in 2023. 2024 was kind of a lost year for everybody. But you get to Quinshon Judkins and you get to Dillon Sampson. There's people already, Quinshon Judkins, he'll never be as good as Nick Chubb. It's a tough way to handle something like that. But what we do know is that Quinshon Judkins ran for over 3,500 yards in 3 years of college football. He averaged 15 touchdowns per year in college football. He tested better athletically than Nick Chubb did. So we're not just going to stand here and say, Quinshon Judkins can never be as good as Nick Chubb. But we'll also preface that by saying, there's a long way to go before we could even have a question or a conversation. Is Quinshon Judkins on the same level as Nick Chubb? Chubb's 7-year career in the NFL speaks for itself. But the poo-pooing and the, already trying to, dismiss what these rookie running backs could possibly do before they've even attempted to do them, I don't want to hear it. It is their time. It is their running back room. Let's see what they can do with it. Sampson certainly excites me as well. I think a lot of people are not going to be ready to watch him run inside and between the tackles. And that'll be certainly some things that we're absolutely looking for once the pads go on in July. Dillon Sampson was a good short yardage runner. Dillon Sampson was a good between the tackles runner. 5'8", 200 and change. And for a guy who is a tad bit smaller, knows how to run and get even smaller. This was one of the things that he was so impressive at on the film from Tennessee. I said it, during the draft process, or after they draft him. There's times where you're looking and you just see a pile of nothing but a mass of men. And then right out the back door of that pile was Dillon Sampson taking one to the house down in Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I understand everybody's still got a heavy heart. I understand most of you are still in mourning. But let's not kill these rookie running backs before they've even gotten the opportunity to get started. Let these guys begin their path and begin their time. I think the offensive line, and look, you don't get a lot here without pads on that just says, certainly when it comes to, interior, defensive line play and offensive line play. But I think the fact that, we know Jack Conklin is okay. We know Wyatt Teller is okay. We know Ethan Posick is okay. We know Joe Batonio is okay. We know DeJuan Jones is okay and looks pretty darn good. It's amazing. He's such a huge human being. And you can see that he's significantly smaller than he's been in the past. But yet he still just looks like an absolutely ginormous individual. You have decent backup guards in Jenkins and Zinter. You brought over the swing tackle from Washington in the offseason. Apparently, they're calling Luke Whippler coach. Okay. But you might need some center help here to get through the summer. You only have 2 on the roster unless you're really going to try this Zach Center thing at center. Or is this something you were just using to get through, OTAs and, mini camp, et cetera, et cetera. But I wouldn't be surprised if another center was brought in to Cleveland between now and training camp. But the fact that they were all out there, we're all able to participate, and just knowing that, none of them essentially are rehabbing from anything right now. DeJuan at least is over what he was rehabbing, and everybody else seems, certainly, age is not on their side, but they are, basically in there getting it done. Harold Fannin quietly had a nice, little spring session here to him. I think a lot of what Fannon's going to be judged on and whether or not Fannon's going to be able to count on to be what level of contributor he could possibly be here, come September, is going to be revised when we get the pads on. And, we try to get an assessment as to just where he is as a blocker. He can't be a liability, because if he's a liability, it's going to be really difficult to get him on the field and not having it just be basically a tell that, the Browns are looking to throw the football. But you saw evidence all spring and all summer. I mean, all OTAs and all mini camp. He's just an intelligent player that knows how to find the open area. And it's something that's never going to be measured in athletic testing. It's something it's an innate ability. You either have it or you don't. And Harold Fannin certainly has it and has it in spades. He can just sense where he is on the field. He can sense where the coverage is on the field. He can sense where he needs to be to make life easier for his quarterback. He's did a great job at it in college. And hopefully that transcends here, obviously, into the league and success on Sundays for Harold Fannin. Had Miles in for this week. Just an absolute beast, freak of nature, whatever superlative you want to say. It actually looked at times like he was faster than he ever had been, which would be a scary thought. You see, there was a quick video today of him, competing in a drill against Alex Wright. And, for any one of these guys in that defensive end room, that's the guy you want to work against, man. Everybody knows what Miles is capable of. Everybody knows the talent that Miles has. And, as Miles transcends and, gets more comfortable with this leadership role, however that's going to work out for him, having, your guys want to compete against you, that's a good way to start with it. And certainly, be good to them as you're beating them miles. Mason Graham, you see the signs of quickness. You see what made him, a very, very successful player at the University of Michigan. Again, once we get to legit padded football practices, that's when the ultimate grades certainly start to come out. But Graham certainly, you can see the hand usage, you see the high motor, things that, had him as successful as he was at Michigan, and the Browns hoping that that success comes extremely early here in Cleveland. The D tackle room is, very much changed over the last, let's say, 2 years with Briggs, Hall, and of course now the addition of Graham, the veteran addition this offseason. Browns, it's time for this room to hopefully become maybe a little bit more of a strength than it's probably ever been in my time covering the Cleveland Browns back to 2017. Between Hall, Briggs, and Mason Graham, you have them all under contractual control for the next 3 years together. 3 really good players. Hall could be the really, really top-notch one here if he can get back to full health and be able to show off the pass rushing ability that was, certainly successful at Streetsboro and certainly successful down in Columbus. With JOK being out for the year, we've seen a lot of linebackers so far this spring. And certainly going to be an interesting positional unit to watch how it all unfolds over the summer and into certainly September with Hicks, with Schlesinger, with Jerome Baker, with Diabate, with Buki Watson, with DJ Reed. They got a lot of guys there in that room. And Devin Bush, they got a lot of guys in that room. And the way it's currently built, they're not going to be able to keep all of them. Nobody's keeping 7 linebackers. So certainly a room that's going to, have a continued viewing over the rest of the summer will be the linebacker room as they try to figure out what the best scenario and the best guys to have on the field while JOK hopefully heals up and is able to return next spring. Denzel Ward is still Denzel Ward, and Denzel Ward will always be Denzel Ward. Again, the Browns have this really strange situation at cornerback 2, and certainly at their nickel, where you have Martin Emerson and Greg Newsome both coming to the ends of their initial rookie contracts for Cleveland at the same time. Both want to perform extremely well here in 2025. If they do, a huge benefit for, how good the Browns could be in 2025 would be whether or not Newsome and Emerson can, play themselves and their names into serious free agent options, whether it's for Cleveland, probably only going to sign one of them, or for any of the other 31 teams within the NFL. Certainly, the safety position, you're not there yet. You've got guys here, whether it's DeMonte Casey, guys that, are going to challenge Rodney Hickman. So Rodney Hickman's going to have to really prove he can be this guy and hold off the veteran presence that are here at the safety position. Certainly showed and had some signs of some early success as a rookie, and hopefully can kind of continue that in a more stabilized role as a starter in year 3 within the Cleveland secondary. So we had a week of OTAs. Minicamp. Great taste to kind of wet the whistle. All the veterans are now off. We'll see you, July 24th. Don't be stupid. Be smart. Do not get yourself in any trouble. Same speeches the coaches give. And then, come July 24th, the 2025 chapter of the Cleveland Browns begins. As always, we appreciate everybody comes out to the OBR every day, whether it is for your favorite written content from your favorite writer or joining us every night at 6 o'clock on the OBR streaming network, beginning with Browns 3D with me, your host, Jeff Lloyd. It is Thursday. All eyes on Cleveland. Brad Ward, Casey Kinnaman up to go at 7. So stick around for that. Make sure you're subscribed to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR over on Twitch. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR, and we'll talk to y'all tomorrow.